So welcome back to the last case for this week of Confirmed from Friday. In this case, we're actually going to be talking about a infamous case that happened in Australia. I don't think like worldwide infamous, but at least infamous in Australia, if that makes sense. So like, it's basically, okay, so it's like Casey Anthony, right? But the Australian version. Hence the title of this video. At least the comparisons are there. There are some differences, of course, but there's obvious comparisons. So you'll see why I compared the two when I go into the details of the story. And so anyway, let me stop wasting my time, stop wasting your time, and let's go get started.
But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, maybe you'll get sick of being the monster out of my head, under my bed. Think you're something out of my nightmares, standing right there. But if I lay down and I play dead and I stay dead, then will you get bored of killing me?
So sorry for the killer. Kristi Ann Abrahams was born in 1983. I didn't get an exact date. I just got 1983. Her childhood was said to have been rough due to having an abusive father. So her mother and her were being abused. Her mother died when she was 10 from apparently she was suffering from epilepsy and died from some sort of seizure. Her father apparently placed her and her brother in foster care where she would stay until she was 16. And apparently she had gotten she had an evaluation done on her, and her IQ was somewhere in the 60s, which apparently the average IQ is between 85 and 100 something. So that's not good. And so when she was 19, she apparently would get pregnant by a Chris. It is alleged that she smoked and drank during her pregnancy and even punched her stomach to hurt the fetus. So she said, I don't want to get an abortion because I'm against that, and yet she was over trying to do things that would pretty much kill the baby. But things you're not supposed to do while you're pregnant, but on purpose. And so on February 6, 2003, she gave birth to a son named Aiden John. On March 23rd, the same year, Chris would wake up to see Aiden face down and was blue in the face. So then Kristi would come screaming that he was dead. She would tell the police that he died of SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, and apparently his cause of death was ruled as SIDS. So of course she was never charged for that. So then the two actually bring another child into this world. April 22nd, 2004, Kristi gave birth to Kaisha, who was the main person of the story. And so on July 4th, the following year, so 2005, Kristi wanted to separate from Chris and even bit Kaisha on the shoulder. Chris, of course, took Kaisha to the hospital and reported Kristi, and the two, of course, separated after this happened. And so at one point, Kristi gave Chris some papers that he signed without reading what they said, and basically he pretty much gave up his legal rights, saying he was an unfit parent. So then, of course, Kaisha would get taken away from Kristi for obvious reasons, but then she would somehow get her back, and so then she would get into a relationship with Robert Terry Smith in 2006. Kristi would go on to have two more children with Robert on February 9th, 2008 and July 7th, 2010. And so then Kristi hated that Kaisha looked like her dad Chris. And so then she would rarely let Kaisha go outside, with other kids. And so out of 2 semesters, it's called terms over there, but over here in America we call it semesters. So out of 2 semesters, she only attended 4 days. And so that's not suspicious enough. Kaisha would have a cigarette burn on her at one point, and she was asked what happened, and she just straight up said Kristi did it. Well, she said mommy did it, but we're calling her Kristi. And so the social worker had made a report, as you should, but nothing ever came of it. And so on August 1st, Kristi would call 000 to report Kaisha missing. She would say that since she liked to play with the stray cats, it is likely that she got abducted while doing that. Kristi and Robert were referred to Kaisha in past tense on a TV interview, which, if you're referring to somebody past tense, that looks a little suspicious. And so, police would do a large search and nothing came up. News spread across Australia. This became a national case. And so Kristi would claim that Chris may have been involved, except luckily he was cleared very quickly because it said that he was recovering from surgery because he had type 1 diabetes. And so then Kristi, instead of at least pretending to act like she was a mother who's upset about her child going missing, she was out getting her hair and nails done and even had moved locations. It is actually even said to have gone on vacation. And so a bear was made with teddy bears and candles and notes at the house that they were living at when Kaisha had apparently went missing. And then a bear had sadly fell on a candle and the house had set on fire. I don't know how bad the fire was. It just said the house was set on fire. And so a source says that Robert had apparently went 2 kilometers to the shopping center to look for her instead of looking closer to their house. So, like, how would she get that far? She's only 6 years old. It was on her own, you know. And so during interrogation, Kristi was said to have been irritated during questioning. The two even bought children's toys to make it like Kaisha was still alive. During a search of the home, Kaisha's blood would be found around the house and teeth marks on the bed. On April 21st, 2011, an undercover cop got Kristi to confess under the assumption that he would help dispose of evidence. According to her, on July 13th, like 3 weeks before she called 000, she was in Kaisha's bedroom. She claimed to kick her because she wouldn't put on pajamas. She fell, becoming unresponsive. They take her to the bathtub to run water on her to wake up, but she doesn't. So at this point, they realize she might be dead. They put her body in a suitcase and they left her there for 2 days. They then get a taxi with fake names and disguises. Robert dug a grave with a hammer and then burned the body. Robert then burned the suitcase and even returned to make sure it was never discovered. On what would have been her 7th birthday, her body was dug up and ultimately discovered. So then Chris, the father, was obviously heartbroken because he's lost his 2 kids. Only 2 kids he had that we know of. So then he got a tattoo on each arm, one with Aiden and one with Kaisha in memory of them. And so then sadly, in November of 2012, Chris will be found dead in his bed by his mother, Liz. His cause of death is listed as natural causes, but is believed to be from his diabetes. Others say he took his own life as a result of grief with his 2 kids. Others just say he died of a broken heart. But sadly, Chris is no longer with us as well. So Kristi would get arrested with 22 years, with 16 years, no parole. Robert would get 16 years, with 12, no parole. And so Robert was actually released on parole in March of 2023. Kaisha's family requested to have him banned from Blacktown and Henrith area, since that's where he lived with Kristi and Kaisha. And so the request would be approved. He also isn't allowed to contact Kristi, for obvious reasons. And he also has an inside curfew from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. while living at a halfway house as of right now, since he just got released technically 2 months ago. And Kristi isn't eligible for parole until another 4 years. So yeah, that was the case of Kaisha Weapon Art. That was the case of Kaisha Weapon Art and her mother, pretty much the Australian Casey Anthony. And so yeah, as tragic as that was, I definitely felt that it should be talked about because hell, the similarities are there. And so if you have any cases you want to discuss with me, definitely let me know. And I'll see you fellas in the next one. Bye.